Republican Senator from Arkansas, Tom Cotton. Senator, thank you very much for being with me. I appreciate it. As you could tell, I'm a little charged up. There seem to be a lot of things that are pretty obvious in the midst of our world. You clearly now have a reputation for seeing things early, for being willing to stand up to them. Can you start by explaining, when we hear now the arguments about, we saw the hacks of the oil pipeline, of the meat supplier, the warnings about the power grid, how is Congress, because we don't see it, how is it that they spend their time demonizing Americans as the enemy when these things are happening in real time and affecting our lives today?
Well, it's happening because Democrats realize that the conditions that they're creating in the country and the results of their policies are not going to help them at the ballot box next year. You know, we just spent a week back in our home states out of session in the Congress, and I didn't hear once comments about the past or about Nancy Pelosi's obsession with this commission or anything else. I heard lots of comments about how our border is still wide open and Kamala Harris hasn't even visited the border, or how everything from gas to food to lumber is skyrocketing in price, or that we've got a crime wave across our nation's cities. That's what I heard about, because that's what normal Americans, normal Arkansans care about. That's what decides elections. But the Democrats know that their policies, in no small part, are responsible for higher crime and higher prices and the border crisis. So they want to try to focus on the past. They want to focus on what matters to them personally as opposed to what matters to the voters. And I think they're going to pay a real price for that.
Well, it seems to be, because there's a recent election at the border around Texas where the Republican won. That they seem to be concerned about how minorities are going to be voting. At least it's heartening, I think you would agree with me, that with all of the media perpetuating the Democrat line, your constituents, Americans across the country, still get what's important. They're not being distracted by that. Do you find that surprising, considering it's legacy media and big tech coming at them with the same messages?
I don't find it surprising, no, because so many Arkansans have learned not to trust everything that they read in the New York Times, that they see on CNN. I mean, the lab leak theory of the origin of the coronavirus pandemic is a good example of that. I was pointing out at the beginning of last year, in the very first days of this pandemic, when most of Washington was obsessed with the impeachment trial, that, you know, this virus didn't start up in some remote mountain village next to a cave full of bats. It happened in a city that's larger than New York, right down the street from the lab where they researched these coronaviruses. And surely anyone with an ounce of common sense would say, well, gosh, maybe we should take a look at that. And the media and the Democrats, because they saw the coronavirus as a way to attack President Trump and hopefully undermine his reelection, dismissed what I was saying as a fringe conspiracy theory, as something that had been debunked, when obviously it had not been. Every bit of evidence we had pointed towards that lab. That's still the case to this day. Now that Donald Trump is no longer in the White House, though, they're willing to look at the facts as the facts and not exactly admit they made a mistake, but acknowledge the reality of it. And when normal Arkansans see that kind of duplicity from the media, then they understand that they can't take everything the media reports at face value.
Well, see, and that's what's key. It's fascinating to me, because you're dealing with a pandemic, the potential, as we've had, millions dead. And that didn't even stop the Democrats from using that to maybe compound the fear, pointing at Donald Trump, the one person who's delivered the element now that is freeing us from this horrible experience, the vaccines. And he is the one that continued to be berated and vilified. And it seems as though you've got a group of people, and this I've always wondered about someone like yourself, that you go to work with these people, you deal with them. It's got to be remarkable. We worry about the kinds of people who are willing to run for office. How, with what you've experienced, I know you're committed to the country, and that is, thank goodness. How is it that you put up with this when it comes to the seriousness of the outcomes that we're dealing with, life and death here?
Well, I love our country, and I love serving our country. I did it in uniform, and I'm very happy to be doing it once again in the United States Senate on behalf of the people of Arkansas. So I understand that some slings and arrows come with that, especially when you're willing to stand up and say unpopular truths, at least truths that are unpopular with the media and with the Democratic Party. So they can use all the names and all the slanders they want, but that's not going to stop me from doing what's right, from representing the common sense views of Arkansans and trying to improve lives for Arkansans and for all Americans. And
well, and
that's exactly what we need more of in Congress.
You know, your position as a single senator for a state, though, has national and international impact when you do things for the right reasons. When I was on the left, the work was designed to try to push good people away, to get people to not want to do certain things. And that, I'm happy to say, continues to fail because of senators and patriots like you, sir. Thank you, Senator Comp, for joining me tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. Now, also